Israel found water that shouldn't exist under the desert, and now 1 million tropical fish live there. Most people hear that and file it away as another miracle in the sand, proof that a country simply out-engineered nature and turned dead land green for good. That version is comforting, and it is incomplete, because the water feeding those fish is ancient, finite, and quietly disappearing, and almost no one asks the one question that decides how this story ends. Start with the land itself. Around 60% of Israel is not farmland or scrub, but open desert. The Negev, where the ground cracks like old pottery, summer temperatures reach 113 degrees Fahrenheit, and rain, when it bothers to come, might fall twice a year. For most of human history, nobody settled here, for the simplest reason imaginable. Nothing can be farmed where nothing can be watered, and there was no water to be found. That is the backdrop that makes what happened next sound invented. Beneath that scorching, empty ground, a fully commercial farming system now produces hundreds of tons of premium fish every year. The real story begins in the early 1970s, roughly 2,300 feet straight down. A hydrogeologist named Ari Isar was surveying rock formations beneath the Negev, expecting dust, maybe limestone, probably nothing worth noting. Instead, the drill punched through layer after layer of solid sandstone and struck water. And this water did not need pumping. The instant the bit breached the layer, it erupted upward on its own, a self-flowing artesian well powered by nothing but millions of years of compression sealed inside the stone. Isar had found an ocean where every map insisted there was only sand. But the fact that the water existed turned out to be the least surprising thing about it. The deeper his team studied what they had tapped, the stranger it became, because this water was not merely old. It was older than almost anything humans had ever touched. Carbon dating told the rest. The water locked in that sandstone was fossil water, rain that had fallen when the last ice age still gripped the planet, and the deserts of the Middle East were green savanna. Depending on the well, it had been sealed underground for somewhere between 20,000 and 40,000 years, untouched since before humans discovered fire. It belonged to the buried system geologists call the Nubian Sandstone Aquifer, and it was so pure it carried none of the mercury, pesticides, or industrial runoff found in modern rivers. But hidden inside that discovery was the one detail that would decide everything, though no one was thinking about it yet. The water was not being refilled. Almost no rain reaches it now. Every drop pulled up took tens of thousands of years to gather, and will not be replaced. In the 1970s, though, nobody worried about how much there was. They worried that the water they had struck was, by every ordinary standard, completely worthless. That worthlessness came down to two things. The first was heat. Drill 2,300 feet into the crust, and geothermal energy takes over, and this water had been slowly cooked for millennia to a constant 99 to 104 degrees Fahrenheit, roughly the temperature of human blood. The second was salt. After tens of thousands of years dissolving minerals from the rock, it carried about 1/10 the salinity of seawater. That sounds manageable, until Israeli engineers tested it on crops and watched the damage arrive fast. Within 72 hours, vegetable plants showed visible stress. Leaves yellowed, growth halted, and within 2 weeks, most of them were dead. Water too hot to cool anything, and too salty to grow anything, looked like a sealed dead end. The obvious move was to cap the well and leave, but a few researchers stopped trying to fix the water and started asking a completely different question, and the answer was already swimming on the far side of the world. The question was simple. What actually thrives in water this warm and this salty? A marine biologist named Samuel Applebaum, working at Ben Gurion University's Desert Aquaculture Center, had the answer. In the tropical river mouths of Australia and Southeast Asia lives the barramundi, a silver, heavy-jawed fish humans have eaten for tens of thousands of years, evolved for exactly the place where fresh rivers meet the sea, in warm, shifting, brackish water. What killed wheat was, to this fish, home. Tilapia and European sea bass fit the same profile. Tilapia shrug off salinity several times higher than the Negev water, and sea bass spend their whole lives crossing between fresh and salt, so the brackish wells were, if anything, easy for them. And the economics were almost unfair. Everywhere else on Earth, Raising tropical fish means burning tens of thousands of dollars a season on heaters to hold the water warm. In the Negev, the geothermal heat that ruined the water for crops kept it at perfect fish temperature all year, for free, straight out of the ground. Keeping the fish alive, it turned out, was the easy part. Keeping them alive in their own waste was where the whole thing nearly died. In 1992, the first farm broke ground at Kibbutz Mashabi Sadeh, a 3-hectare reservoir feeding rows of covered ponds stocked with barramundi, tilapia, and sea bass. The fish adapted almost immediately, and within a few years, a single kibbutz was pulling around 200 tons of premium fish a year out of open wasteland. Today, roughly 1 million tropical fish swim beneath the Negev. Newer operations went fully industrial, with recirculating desert farms engineered to grow some 2,000 tons of barramundi a year, while older ponds recycle the same brine up to 6 times before it moves on. But scale dragged the operation into the wall every fish farm eventually hits. A single barramundi eats about 3% of its body weight every day, and a pond holding tens of thousands of them saturates the water with ammonia. At concentrations as low as 2 parts per million, ammonia burns gills, attacks nervous systems, and collapses the immune response. Left alone, a crowded pond quietly poisons itself. Dumping the fouled water was impossible because there was no ocean to flush it into, and not a single drop to spare. Then someone stared at the poison stacking up in the ponds and saw something nobody had been looking for. Ammonia is lethal to fish, but to a plant, ammonia is nitrogen, the single most important nutrient there is. The same nitrogen that chemical plants burn close to 2% of the world's total energy supply to manufacture. The fish were not producing pollution, they were producing free, organic fertilizer. So instead of filtering the water or throwing it away, engineers ran irrigation pipes straight from the ponds into groves of olive and jojoba trees. At Rayam Farm in the western Negev, Fish Effluent now irrigates 120 hectares of olives all year round. The trees drank the nitrogen, and fruit yields climb 15 to 20% above conventional growing. The salt everyone feared barely mattered, because olives and date palms evolved in salty Mediterranean soil and tolerated easily. Stranger still, over the years, the ground grew less salty, not more, as the trees drew salt up into old leaves that dropped away during pruning. Nothing was wasted. Every output became an input. On paper, it looked like a perfect machine, and the money only sharpened that picture. The economics are where it turns almost too clever to believe. Fresh desalinated water in Israel is expensive enough to bankrupt most crops. The brackish water from the aquifer costs roughly 1/10 as much, because the drilling was a one-time job finished decades ago, and the artesian pressure still does most of the pumping for nothing. The fish warm the water, load it with nutrients, and hand it to the farmers as irrigation and fertilizer in one delivery, with no water bill and no waste to haul away. 2 industries that would normally fight over every drop share it instead. Across the Negev, farms now push out more than 3,000 tons of fish a year. Israeli barramundi lands in supermarkets in France and Germany, and Egypt has already opened pilot farms copying the method in its own desert. Reportedly, the full loop even runs carbon negative, since the free geothermal heat replaces gas boilers, and the groves lock away carbon of their own. It looks unstoppable, a model quietly spreading across the arid world. But here's the catch, and it is the single number nobody standing over these ponds likes to say out loud. The entire system runs on water that will never come back. The aquifer is fossil water, filled during the last ice age and receiving almost no recharge today, which means it is not being harvested. It is being mined. Every liter that reaches a fish pond took tens of thousands of years to collect and is gone the instant it is used, and the draw keeps rising. Issar, the geologist who found it, estimated that extraction across the region could climb from around 25 million cubic meters a year toward 300 million, more than a tenfold increase, pulled from a reserve that physically cannot refill. The million fish in the desert, the olive groves, the exports, the carbon math everyone loves to quote, all of it rests on a 40,000-year-old inheritance being spent at industrial speed. And the moment the water is traced past Israel's border, this stops being one country's clever trick. Because Israel is far from the only nation with a well sunk into the same buried ocean. The Nubian sandstone aquifer system is the largest fossil water reserve on the planet, spread across some 2.6 million square kilometers beneath Egypt, Libya, Sudan, and Chad, shared by all of them and governed by almost no one. Libya shows where the road can lead. Its great man-made river pumps the same ancient water across the desert at around 6.5 million cubic meters every single day. And while the Libyan government once claimed the supply would last thousands of years, independent scientists have estimated the aquifer could be drawn down in as little as 60 years, and faster still if neighboring countries increase their own extraction. Reportedly, no one can even agree on how much remains, because the reserve was never designed to be measured, only to sit undisturbed. Every nation at the tap is now pumping against the others, and the water they share cannot be used twice. What Israel built in the Negev is genuinely brilliant. It is also drinking from a clock, and nobody is certain what time it reads. So the fish keep swimming, the groves keep fruiting, and the desert keeps producing what it was never supposed to produce. All of it floating on ancient water that is quietly, permanently draining away beneath the sand. A million fish are swimming on borrowed time beneath the sand. Subscribe to watch how long it lasts.